Hey there, welcome to the English Talk community. I'm Ben, and I'm really happy you're here with me today. This is the right place for you to practice your English without fear and without judgment. Today, we're going to talk about something that I know has happened to you before, because it's happened to me too. You study a word in English, you repeat it, you write it down, you feel confident, but the next day, it's gone. You can't remember it, not even a little. Does this happen to you too? If it does, you are definitely not alone. This is one of the most common frustrations I hear from people who are learning English. And I want to tell you something right now, from the beginning. It's not your fault. Your brain is not broken. You don't have a bad memory. You're not too old to learn. You just need to learn how memory really works when it comes to learning a language. And that's what I'm going to help you with today. Now, I want to ask you something. What if I told you that remembering English words can actually become easy? What if it could even be fun? Not something stressful, not something full of pressure, but something simple and natural, like hearing a song and remembering the lyrics without trying. That's what we're aiming for today. So take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. This podcast is your space. You don't have to be perfect here. You don't need to speak like a native speaker. You just need to keep learning, keep practicing, and keep showing up. And today, I'm going to give you real tools, tricks, and habits that actually work to help you stop forgetting English words. These are the same tricks that many of my students use, and the same ones that helped me when I was learning Spanish years ago. Before we start with the first tip, I want to say this. If this sounds like something you need, hit the like button now. It really helps more people like you find this podcast. And don't forget to subscribe. That way, we can keep growing together, week by week. Okay, let's go back to that feeling we were talking about. You study a word, you understand it. You think, yes, I've got it. Then, a few days later, someone says it in a conversation, or you want to say it, and it's like your brain freezes. You know it's somewhere in your mind, but you just can't find it. I used to feel this way all the time, especially when I was trying to speak fast or when I felt nervous. I would think, why do I forget the words I just studied yesterday? I even started to believe that maybe I wasn't good at languages, that maybe I wasn't smart enough. But now I know that's not true. The problem wasn't me. The problem was the way I was trying to remember. Here's the truth. Your brain is very smart, but it doesn't remember random words easily. It remembers meaning. It remembers emotion. It remembers images. It remembers stories. Think about your own memories. What do you remember more? A list of 10 random words, or the story of the first time you traveled to a new city? Probably the story. That's because stories activate many parts of your brain. Your imagination, your senses, your emotions. And that's why stories help us remember. And that's why so many people forget English words. Because they try to learn them in a way that the brain doesn't like. Just a list. A translation. Maybe some repetition. But there's no meaning. No connection. So the brain doesn't know what to do with it. It says, this isn't important. Let's forget it. But you can change that. And it doesn't require more effort. It just requires better strategies. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, Clara, from Madrid, once told me, Ben, I've been learning English for years. I understand so many words, but when I speak, I forget them. I feel like I'm always starting over. I asked her, "How do you study?" She said she was using a big app, memorizing flashcards every day. I said, "Okay, now try something different. When you learn a new word, make a sentence with it from your real life, and say that sentence out loud. Imagine yourself in the situation." A few days later, she messaged me, "Ben, I remembered 5 new words without the app." What did she do differently? She made the words real. She made them personal. And that's what makes the difference. We're going to talk about all of that in today's episode. I'll show you simple ways to connect English words to your daily life. I'll give you examples from learners just like you, from Lisbon, from Rome, from Paris, from Berlin, people who speak different languages but who have the same goal: to remember English words and speak with more confidence. I want you to know this is possible for you. You don't need a perfect memory. You don't need to study for 3 hours a day. You don't need to be afraid of forgetting. You just need a few tools. And more than anything, you need to trust the process. If you stay with me through this episode, I truly believe you'll feel a shift. A small change in how you think about learning. A new perspective. And from there, remembering words will become easier. I'm really excited to share these tricks with you today. But remember, just listening is not enough. Practice one thing you hear, even one little thing, and you'll already be making progress. Let's begin. Let's talk about repetition. You've probably heard this advice many times before. Repeat the word. Say it again. Write it 10 times. And maybe you've done it. You learned a new English word, and you wrote it in your notebook again and again. Or you said it out loud while walking around the room. Or maybe you made digital flashcards and went through them every day. But let me ask you something. Even after all that repetition, do you still forget the word a few days later? If the answer is yes, I want to tell you, you are not doing anything wrong. You're doing what most learners do. And the problem is not your effort. The problem is how we repeat things. You see, simple repetition, just saying or reading the word over and over, is not enough. Not if you want to move that word into your long-term memory. In fact, repeating a word too many times in one moment can be a waste of energy. Your brain says, "Okay, I've seen this 10 times today." But if you don't see it again tomorrow, or the next day, it disappears. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole at the bottom. You can keep pouring, and for a moment the bucket looks full. But soon, all the water is gone. That's what happens when you use only simple repetition. You remember the word for an hour, or maybe a day. But because your brain didn't get the message that this word is important, it lets go of it. And so, you feel frustrated. You wonder, why do I forget so quickly? Let me share the story of Lucas. He's from Lisbon, and he told me this exact thing. He said, "Ben, I study English every day. I write down the words. I review them. But after a few days, I can't remember anything. It's like my brain resets every week." I asked him, "How do you review the words?" He said, "I just read them again and again until I think I know them." That's what I call passive repetition. You look at the word, you read it, you feel familiar with it, but you're not truly testing your brain. You're not building strong connections. So I showed Lucas a better way, something called spaced repetition. And it changed everything for him. Spaced repetition is the idea of reviewing words at the right time, not too soon and not too late. There's actually a memory curve, and your brain forgets information in a pattern. If you don't review the word at the right moment, the memory gets weaker. But if you review it just before you forget, the memory becomes stronger. Like lifting a muscle. You're building it over time. So here's what I told Lucas to do. When you learn a new word today, review it tomorrow. Then again, 2 days later. Then a week later. Each time, wait a little longer before reviewing it again. This is what helps the memory stick. And that's what Lucas started doing. Instead of repeating the same word 20 times in one day, he saw it once on Monday, once on Tuesday, once on Thursday, and once the next week. And guess what? After 1 month, he still remembered it. Easily. Without stress. And more importantly, he could use it in real conversations. Let's say the new word is confused. On day 1, you learn it. You write a sentence. I feel confused when people speak too fast. You say it out loud. Great. On day 2, review it again. Try to remember the sentence without looking. On day 4, test yourself. Can you use it in a different sentence? I was confused at the airport. A week later, hear it again in a podcast or say it to a friend. These little moments of review, spread out over time, are powerful. Now, this doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a special app, although there are some that can help. You can also use a simple notebook. Write the word. Write the date. And then plan your reviews. Tomorrow, in 2 days, in 1 week. Make it part of your routine. Maybe every morning, review 5 words you learned in the past week. And here's the key. Don't try to memorize the word perfectly in one session. Instead, trust that each small review is helping your brain build a stronger path. Your memory is like a path in a forest. The more often you walk on it, the clearer it becomes. But if you walk on it too many times in one day, and then never again, it disappears. Smart repetition also means testing yourself. Instead of looking at the word and saying, I remember this, close your eyes and try to use it in a sentence. Or write the word on one side of a card and the meaning on the other. Look at the meaning and ask, what's the word again? That little challenge tells your brain, hey, this is important. Another way to do smart repetition is to use the word in different ways. Maybe today you write it. Tomorrow you say it out loud. The next time you hear it in a video. Each way helps the memory become more complete. I want to remind you of something important. You don't need to remember 100 words a day. You don't even need to remember 10. If you remember just 3 new words this week, and you remember them forever, that's better than learning 30 and forgetting all of them. Be patient with yourself. This is a process, and once you stop wasting time with simple repetition and start using smart repetition, your memory will feel stronger. You'll stop feeling like English words are slipping through your fingers. Instead, you'll start feeling in control. That's what happened with Lucas. After a few weeks of using smart repetition, he told me, Ben, I feel like English is finally staying in my brain. I'm not afraid of forgetting anymore. And that's what I want for you, too. One of the most powerful tools for remembering English words is something you already have. It's not a special app. It's not a perfect memory. It's not more time or energy. It's your emotions. That's right. Your feelings can help you learn English faster and remember words longer. And today, I want to show you how this works and how you can use it in your daily practice. Let me start with a simple question. What are the things you remember most in life? You probably don't remember what you had for lunch last Wednesday. You probably don't remember every detail from your last English lesson. But I bet you remember your first day at a new job, or the day your child was born, or the last time you laughed so hard it hurt. Why? Because those moments had emotion. They mattered to you. And your brain knew it. Your brain is very good at remembering things that feel important, things that make you feel something. Happiness, sadness, surprise, fear, love. When you connect a new English word to an emotion, your brain pays attention. It says, "This means something. Let's keep this." And that's exactly what we want. Let me share a story about someone named Anna. She's from Milan, and she's been learning English for a while. One day she told me, "Ben, I always forget the word celebrate. I've seen it many times, but it never stays in my mind." So I asked her, "What do you think of when you hear that word? Celebrate." She thought for a second. Then she smiled. "My daughter's birthday," she said. "We had a big party last month. It was her 5th birthday." I said, "Great. Now use the word celebrate to describe that moment." She said, "We celebrated with a big cake, music, and lots of games." She was so happy. I could see it in her face. That memory was alive. It wasn't just a word anymore. It was her daughter's smile, the music, the candles on the cake. That one sentence was enough. After that, she never forgot the word celebrate again. Because now, that word had meaning. That's the power of emotional connection. You can do this too. Anytime you learn a new English word, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, where is this word in my life? What does this remind me of? When have I felt this word? Maybe the word is nervous. When was the last time you felt nervous? Before an interview? Before a big trip? Imagine that moment. Now say, "I was nervous before my first flight to London." That's your sentence. It's personal. It's real. And your brain will remember it. Maybe the word is grateful. Think of a time when someone helped you. Maybe your friend brought you soup when you were sick. Say, "I was grateful when my friend helped me last year." Again, real emotion, real memory. You don't need big stories. Even small feelings can help. If the word is tired, just think of a long day after work. "I was so tired after cleaning the house." That's enough. The point is, connect the word to your life, not a textbook sentence, not something from a flashcard, something that means something to you. Let me tell you about another learner, Mateo from Madrid. He struggled with remembering the word lost. I asked him, "What does lost mean to you?" He said, "I don't know, just something is gone." I pushed him a bit more. "Have you ever been lost?" He smiled. "Yes, in Berlin. I went for a walk and forgot the name of my hotel." Perfect. Now his sentence became, "I was lost in Berlin. I couldn't find my hotel." That sentence was real. It made him laugh. It had emotion. And now the word lost is stuck in his brain forever. You can do this with almost every word. And if you're thinking, "But I don't have a strong memory," that's okay. You don't need one. You just need to feel something when you learn the word. That's what changes everything. This is why movies, stories, and personal conversations are so helpful. When you hear English in a situation that makes you feel, you remember it longer. Maybe you watched a movie where the characters fall in love, and you hear the word promise. Because of that emotional scene, now you always remember the word promise. That's not magic. That's how the brain works. So the next time you sit down to learn 5 new English words, don't just repeat them. Don't just write them 10 times. Try this instead. Say the word out loud. Think of a moment in your life that connects to that word. Say or write a sentence about that moment using the word. Even if it takes a little more time, the result will be stronger. You'll forget less, you'll feel more confident, and you'll build a real connection with English. And here's a little bonus tip. When you create personal sentences, write them down in a notebook or your phone. Read them again every few days. These are not just sentences. These are your memories in English, and they will help you build your fluency faster than any grammar rule. Remember, words are not just letters. They are ideas. They are feelings. And when you make those feelings personal, your brain says, "This is mine." That's how memory works. That's how fluency begins. Let's talk about how your brain really works when it comes to learning and remembering English words. You might think that memory is all about repetition or writing things down. But the truth is, your brain is a visual machine. It loves images. It remembers what it sees much more easily than what it hears or reads. If you want to remember new English words faster, you need to stop thinking like a student and start thinking like an artist or a child. I know that sounds strange, but stay with me. When you were a child, before you could read or write, how did you learn things? You looked, you watched, you imagined, and that part of your brain still works. Even as an adult, your brain responds more strongly to images than to abstract ideas or lists of words. That's why visual memory is such a powerful tool for language learning. Let me give you an example. Think of the word elephant. You don't think of the letters ELEPHANT. You think of the image, big ears, long trunk, walking slowly. That's how your brain stores it. Now, let's say you learn the word umbrella. If you just read it, repeat it, and move on, your brain may not care. But if you imagine something unusual, something funny, your brain says, "Wait a minute, that's interesting. Let me keep that." That brings me to a story about Thomas. He's from Munich, and he's been learning English for a couple of years. One day he told me, "Ben, I can never remember the word umbrella. I always forget it, even though I've seen it many times." I asked him, "What do you think about when you hear the word?" He said, "Nothing, really. I just try to memorize it." And that's exactly the problem. So I gave him a challenge. I said, "Okay, I want you to imagine the craziest thing you can. Picture a giant elephant walking in the rain. But instead of a normal umbrella, it has a pink umbrella sitting on its head, like a hat. The elephant is dancing, and water is falling everywhere." He laughed. "That's ridiculous." Exactly. That's why it works. The next week, I asked him again, "Do you remember the word umbrella now?" He smiled and said, "Yes, I can't forget it. Every time it rains, I see that elephant." That's the power of visual memory. You don't need to draw anything. You don't need to be an artist. You just need to close your eyes and see the word in your mind. But not just as a normal object. Make it strange. Make it funny. Make it emotional. That's how your brain locks it in. Let's do it together. Take the word banana. Boring, right? Now imagine a banana with sunglasses, lying on the beach in Italy, drinking orange juice. Now that's something you might remember. Or the word confused. Imagine a chicken trying to use a smartphone. That image makes the word come alive. You can use this for any word. The weirder, the better. Because strange and silly images are easier to remember than normal ones. If I say cat, you might forget. But if I say a cat wearing shoes and reading a book about airplanes, your brain says, okay, that's new. That's what we want. This works especially well with words that are hard for you. Maybe you keep forgetting pillow. Then picture a pillow flying through the sky like a magic carpet. Or angry. Imagine a small, angry apple shouting at a watermelon. It sounds silly, and that's the point. You see, when something makes you smile, laugh, or feel surprised, your brain lights up. Emotion and images together are a perfect combination for memory. And here's the best part. You can do this anytime, anywhere. You don't need a book. You don't need a teacher. All you need is a few seconds and your imagination. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. It turns into a habit. Some learners I work with even keep a crazy image notebook. Every time they learn a new word, they write a sentence and draw a small picture, just for fun. Others use apps where they can upload silly photos to go with each word. There are no rules. The only rule is, make it visual and make it strange enough to stay in your head. Let's go back to Thomas for a moment. After the elephant trick worked, he started doing this with all his new vocabulary. He told me about how he remembered kitchen by imagining a giraffe cooking spaghetti, or how he remembered fast by seeing a rocket-powered dog chasing a skateboard. He said, "Ben, now I actually enjoy learning words. It feels like playing, not studying." And that's the secret. When learning feels like play, your brain is more open. You're not forcing the memory. You're letting it happen naturally. So if you're someone who says, "I always forget vocabulary," try this. Stop focusing only on the word itself. Don't just write it down 10 times. Instead, close your eyes and create an image. The more ridiculous, the better. Connect it to the meaning. And then smile. Because the moment you smile, your brain has already started to remember. Let the words live in your imagination. Let them become more than letters. Let them become pictures that tell stories. Because when words have a shape, a color, a sound, a feeling, they stay. Let's talk about something simple but powerful. Your own voice. Most people forget this, but your voice is one of the best memory tools you have. Reading and writing are great, yes. Listening is important too. But saying things out loud, with real sound, emotion, and movement, that activates a completely different part of your brain. And when you speak, you create a stronger connection between the word and your memory. Think about this. When you say a word out loud, you don't just hear it, you feel it. Your mouth moves, your breath changes, your muscles work. Your brain is processing not only sound, but action, rhythm, and even feeling. That physical connection adds layers to your learning. It's not passive anymore. It becomes real. Many learners only study silently. They read vocabulary. They repeat in their heads. They write things down. But they don't say anything. And then, when it's time to speak English in real life, they freeze. They know the word, but it won't come out. That's because they didn't practice using their voice. I remember a conversation I had with Ben, one of our regular contributors here at the English Talk community. He explained it perfectly. He said, "When you speak out loud, you create an emotional memory. You add sound, movement, and even a bit of performance. That sticks." He told me about a student of his, Sophia, from Barcelona. Sophia had been studying English for a while, and she knew a lot of vocabulary. But she always forgot 2 words. stuck, and confused. She said, "David, I've written these words so many times, and I've seen them in movies, but when I try to use them, I can't remember. It's like they disappear." Ben asked her, "Have you ever said them out loud?" She paused. "Not really. I just read them." That's when he gave her a very simple challenge. He said, "Go to your bathroom mirror and talk to yourself. Say the words out loud, not just the words alone, but in a full sentence. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you're in a movie." So Sophia went home and stood in front of her mirror. She looked at herself and said, "I'm stuck. I don't know what to do." She added some emotion to it, like she was in a drama. Then she tried, "I'm confused. I don't understand anything." She repeated each sentence 3 or 4 times, changing her tone, adding frustration or surprise. And something happened. She told us later, "It felt a little silly at first, but I remembered the words. Not just the sound, I remembered the feeling." She had created an emotional memory, and emotional memories are strong. That's the magic of speaking out loud. You don't need a conversation partner. You don't need a classroom. You just need your voice and a little courage. Say the word, then say the sentence, then act it out. Use your hands, your face, your emotion. The more alive it feels, the more your brain holds on to it. You can try it right now. Let's say the word nervous. Say it slowly. Nervous. Now say it in a sentence. "I feel nervous about my interview." Now say it like you really feel it. Imagine you're about to walk into an important meeting. Say it again with that energy. "I feel nervous about my interview." Did you notice the difference? The first time, it's just a word. The second time, it's real. That's when your memory starts to lock in. There's another benefit, too. When you speak out loud, you become more confident. You start to feel what the words sound like in your own mouth. You begin to trust your voice. And that's important, because speaking English isn't just about knowing words. It's about using them. A lot of learners wait for the perfect time to speak. They say, "I'll start talking when I know more vocabulary," or "I'll wait until my grammar is better." But that day never comes. And the longer you wait, the harder it feels. So don't wait. Start small. One word, one sentence, one emotion. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to speak. I'll tell you something I often do myself when learning a new language. I take a walk, and I talk to myself. Out loud. I describe what I see. I repeat a new phrase. I act out a situation. Sometimes people look at me like I'm a little strange, but that's okay. I'm practicing. I'm building my voice memory. I'm turning language into sound. And that's something I want you to do as well. If you're learning the word excited, don't just write it down. Say it. Feel it. "I'm excited to meet my friend today." Smile when you say it. Make it real. Your brain will say, "Ah, this is important. Let's remember it." The same goes for difficult words, the ones that always slip away. Turn them into short scenes. If you're learning disappointed, you can say, "I'm disappointed because the pizza never arrived." And you say it with a sad face. Or, thrilled. "I'm thrilled to be here." Say it like you mean it. That's how you go from learning to remembering. Sophia started doing this every day. 5 minutes in the mirror. A few new words. Some short, dramatic sentences. After 2 weeks, she told Ben, "I don't forget words anymore. They're part of me now." So what about you? What's a word you always forget? Try it now. Say it out loud. Make a sentence. Add emotion. Say it again tomorrow. And the next day. You'll be amazed at how quickly it sticks. Your voice isn't just a tool for communication. It's a tool for learning. Use it. Trust it. And let your brain do the rest. There's a habit I keep returning to when I talk to English learners. Something so simple, but so many people ignore it. It's this. If you learn a new word today, use it today. Even if you're not sure it's right. Even if you mess up. Because the act of using a word, especially when it's still fresh, is what tells your brain, this matters. Keep it. You're not just recognizing the word anymore. You're owning it. I remember one of Ben's favorite stories about this. He was working with a learner named Nicholas from Paris. Nicholas had been learning English for over a year. He had good listening skills, and he understood a lot of vocabulary. But when he spoke, his words came out slowly. He would pause, think too much, and sometimes not say anything at all. He said, I don't want to make mistakes. I don't want to sound silly. Ben gave him a challenge. One day, they studied the word excited, a very common word, useful in everyday life. Ben explained the meaning, gave examples, and asked Nicholas to repeat it. Nicholas said it softly, a little unsure, excited. But Ben wasn't satisfied with just the repetition. He said, now go and use it. Today, talk to someone. Use this word in a sentence, even if it's not perfect. That made Nicholas nervous. He wasn't confident with new vocabulary. He said, what if I say it wrong? What if the sentence doesn't make sense? Ben smiled and said, perfect doesn't help you remember. Using it does. You don't need the perfect sentence. You need the experience. So Nicholas tried. Later that evening, he was talking to two friends, and he made the effort. He said, I am very excited because I will eat pizza tonight. His friends smiled. One corrected him slightly. I'm very excited to eat pizza tonight. Nicholas repeated it. Yes, I'm very excited to eat pizza tonight. And just like that, the word stuck. It became real. Not because he studied it more, but because he used it. He made a small mistake, yes, but he got feedback. He heard the correct version, and now that word has a memory. It's connected to a moment, a smile, a conversation. And it stayed. That's the secret. If you want words to stay in your long-term memory, you need to activate them. You need to use them in real situations, not just in your head. Even if those situations are small. Even if you make a mistake. The brain remembers what you do, not just what you study. We often think of language as something you should prepare before using. You wait until you know the grammar. You wait until you've practiced the pronunciation. You wait until you feel confident. But that's like waiting to swim until you've studied the water. At some point, you have to get in. The best moment to use a new word is right after you learn it. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. That's when your brain is still working with it. That's when your memory is most active. If you don't use it, your brain will think, okay, maybe this wasn't important, and it will fade. I've seen this happen with learners all over the world. They write down new vocabulary. They highlight it in books. They even make beautiful flashcards. But they never speak the word. They never try to use it in a real sentence. And later, when they see it again, it feels unfamiliar. But when you do use it, even in a simple, messy sentence, your brain lights up. You're telling yourself, this is useful. This is part of my voice now. That little act, That decision to use the word creates a new pathway in your memory. It starts becoming automatic. Nicholas began doing this regularly. Every day, he picked one word, just one. He learned it in the morning, and then he challenged himself to use it during the day. Sometimes it was with friends, sometimes just on social media, sometimes even in an email to a coworker. The first few times, he made mistakes. He mixed up verb forms or used the wrong preposition. But over time, something changed. He stopped thinking so hard. The words came faster. He didn't freeze in conversation anymore. And his vocabulary started growing, not just in size, but in strength. He remembered the words because he used them. I want you to do the same. Don't wait for the perfect sentence. Don't wait until you feel confident. If you learn the word delicious today, find a way to say it today. Say, this soup is delicious. Even if you're not sure about the rest of the sentence, that's okay. You're building the habit. You're creating memory through action. Here's a little tip I give to all my learners. Keep a today's word notebook. Write the word you learned this morning. Then, during your day, try to use it 3 times. Write it in a message. Say it to yourself. Use it in conversation. It doesn't matter how. Just do it. And if you make a mistake, great. Mistakes are part of the process. Every time someone corrects you, or you realize, oh, that didn't sound right, you're learning. That moment of correction is powerful. It adds detail to your memory. It makes the word more vivid. We forget that language is not a test. It's a tool. It's not about getting 100% correct. It's about expressing yourself, communicating. And to do that, you have to start using the pieces you have, even if they're not perfect. One of my students once told me, I thought I had to wait until I knew everything. But now I see I just have to use what I know, and the rest will come. That's the mindset shift I hope for you. So the next time you learn a word, don't just write it down. Don't just repeat it silently. Use it out loud, in a sentence, in your day, even if it's not perfect, because that's how language becomes yours. Let me ask you something. When you study new vocabulary, do you usually write down random words as you see them? Maybe you have a long list of English words in your notebook or in a flashcard app. Words like appointment, umbrella, carpet, delicious, airport, all mixed together with no real order. If that sounds familiar, don't worry. That's exactly what most people do. It feels like you're being productive. You're collecting words, and that has to mean progress, right? But here's the truth. This way of learning might actually be slowing you down. Let me tell you what I've learned, and what made a huge difference not just for me, but for so many learners I've worked with. When your brain sees a bunch of disconnected words, it treats them like noise. There's no story, no connection, no meaning between them. That's why you forget them so easily. But when you group words by theme, by topic, something amazing happens. Your brain suddenly knows what to do with that information. The words become part of a system, a network, and that helps you remember them naturally. Let me introduce you to Emma from Dublin. Emma was one of those learners who had tried everything. She had dozens of pages of vocabulary notes, all neatly written, all organized, alphabetically. Every time she found a new word, she'd write it under the correct letter, A, B, C, and so on. But she had a problem. She kept forgetting the words. Even after reviewing them several times, they just wouldn't stick. It was frustrating. One day, she listened to a tip I gave on a podcast. Maybe you heard that episode too. I talked about grouping vocabulary by themes: house, kitchen, emotions, travel, work, relationships. That way, the brain connects the new word to something familiar. It places it in a mental room, and when you enter that room again, the word is still there, waiting for you. Emma decided to try it. She reorganized her entire notebook. Instead of alphabetical lists, she started new sections: one for food, one for transportation, one for health, and so on. She didn't change the number of words she studied. She didn't study longer. But in just 2 weeks, something changed. She began to recall vocabulary more easily when speaking. When she was cooking, words like knife, pan, boil, and spicy came to her naturally. When she was talking about travel, she suddenly remembered passport, luggage, and boarding pass. Her speaking became smoother, more confident, and the only thing she changed was how she organized her vocabulary. Why does this work? Think about your brain like a library. If you throw books on the floor in random piles, it takes forever to find what you're looking for. But if you group them by topic, travel books in one section, cookbooks in another, it's easy to find what you need. Vocabulary works the same way. The brain loves patterns, categories, and associations. When you learn knife, and right after that you learn fork, spoon, and plate, your brain recognizes the relationship. That connection makes all of them easier to remember. Here's a practical way to apply this. Every time you learn a new word, ask yourself, what category does this word belong to? Is it something I use in the kitchen? Is it an emotion? Is it a word I'd use at the airport? Then write it down in that group. Use your phone, a notebook, or an app, but always keep words grouped by theme. You'll be amazed how much faster you start remembering them. Another tip: if you already have a vocabulary list, take 20 minutes to go through it and reorganize it into themes. You don't need to change every single thing at once. Just start with the most common themes: home, food, travel, and emotions. That alone will make a huge difference in how your brain processes and stores the words. I've seen students take this even further. One learner created digital folders with audio clips. In her transportation folder, she had recordings of words like train, ticket, schedule, and driver, all spoken by a native speaker. She listened to that folder every morning while getting ready. Another student made a themed photo album. She took pictures of real objects, like her kitchen tools, and added the English names as captions. Every time she opened her phone, she was reinforcing that vocabulary visually and thematically. There are so many creative ways to do this. What matters is that you stop treating words like isolated facts. Instead, treat them like parts of a bigger picture. You don't need to memorize 1,000 random words. You need to build 10 strong word networks. The more connected your vocabulary is, the more confident you'll sound when you speak. And by the way, don't be afraid to use the same word in multiple themes. For example, the word cold can appear in your weather group, your health group, and even your drinks group. That's not a problem. It's actually a bonus. Seeing the same word in different contexts strengthens your memory and improves your flexibility when using it. Try this today. Choose one theme that's relevant to your life right now. Maybe it's daily routine, or office vocabulary, or even emotions. Write down 5 to 10 words connected to that theme. Then try using them in simple sentences. Imagine a real-life situation where those words would appear. Visualize it. Speak out loud. Repeat tomorrow. And the next day. That's how fluency starts. Not with random effort, but with smart strategy. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. One of the fastest ways to improve your English isn't just to study more. It's to teach what you learn. I know that might sound strange, especially if you're still learning yourself. You might be thinking, but I'm not a teacher. How can I teach something I've just learned? But stay with me, because this is one of the most powerful strategies I've seen for building vocabulary, improving fluency, and boosting confidence. There's a reason why teachers often seem to know their subject so well. It's not just because they studied it for years. It's because they talk about it. They explain it. They break it down for others, over and over again. Every time you explain something to someone else, you're not just helping them. You're helping yourself. Your brain processes the information in a deeper way. It becomes active learning instead of passive. Let me introduce you to Carlos from Madrid. Carlos had been learning English for over a year when he realized he was stuck. He understood a lot, he could read fairly well, and even write a little. But when it came to speaking, he froze. His words didn't come out smoothly. He forgot vocabulary. And worst of all, he didn't feel confident. Every time he tried to speak, he hesitated, unsure if he was using the right word or grammar. That's when he decided to try something different. He had heard me mention in a video that teaching what you learn can help solidify it in your mind. He didn't have a classroom or students, of course, but he had a phone. So he created a habit. Every day after studying, he recorded a short audio message, usually just 2 or 3 minutes, explaining what he had learned that day. It might be a new word, a grammar structure, or an idiom. He pretended he was teaching a friend who knew nothing about it. At first, he felt awkward. He worried about making mistakes. But he kept going. He didn't aim for perfection. He aimed for clarity. And something amazing happened. After just a couple of weeks, he noticed that the words he had explained were easier to remember. They came to him faster in conversations. His pronunciation improved, too, because he was speaking out loud every single day. By teaching the vocabulary to an imaginary student, Carlos activated different parts of his brain. He wasn't just repeating words, he was using them, forming sentences, building examples. He was practicing retrieval, the process of pulling information out of your memory. That's the key to long-term learning. You can do the same thing, no matter your level. The best part? You don't need anyone else to make this work. You can teach to yourself, out loud, in writing, with your phone. You can even teach your pet, your plants, or your reflection in the mirror. The important thing is this: speak the words as if you were explaining them to someone who doesn't understand them yet. Let's say you just learned the word generous. Don't just memorize the definition. Try saying, generous means someone who gives more than expected. For example, my friend paid for my coffee even though I didn't ask. That was generous. Now, you're not just learning the word, you're using it, describing it, and making it personal. That's how you make it stick. Another trick I use is what I call the mini lesson. After I read or hear something interesting in English, I take a moment to say it back in my own words. I try to explain it like I'm making a short podcast for beginners. I don't worry about mistakes. I just focus on expressing the idea clearly. Sometimes I record it. Sometimes I write it down. Sometimes I just say it out loud in the car or while I'm walking. It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is that you're turning passive learning into active use. This method is powerful for a few reasons. First, it forces you to slow down and think about what you've learned. That's important. Most learners go too fast. They jump from one word to the next without giving their brain time to absorb anything. Teaching slows you down just enough to process the information deeply. Second, it builds your speaking habit. You're using your voice, forming English sentences, and gaining confidence. And third, it's personal. You're not just copying from a textbook, you're expressing what you understood in your own words. That makes it real. Here's something else to consider. When you teach what you learn, you become more aware of your gaps. Maybe you try to explain a phrase like, "take it for granted," and realize you're not exactly sure what it means. That's not a failure. That's feedback. It shows you where to go deeper. You go back, look it up again, check examples, and then try again. That second explanation will be even stronger. And the word? Now it's yours. You've earned it. You can also take this idea and make it social. If you have a friend who's also learning English, set up a little challenge. Each of you teaches one new word or phrase every day. You can send each other voice messages or even short texts explaining the word. Over time, you'll build a shared vocabulary, and you'll motivate each other to keep going. Teaching isn't about being perfect. It's about being engaged, curious, active. You don't need to know everything to explain something. In fact, the best way to know if you really understand a word is to try teaching it. If you can explain it simply, using your own examples, that's when you know it's truly part of your English toolbox. So next time you finish your study session, don't just close your notebook and move on. Take a few minutes to explain what you learned. Talk to your phone, write a paragraph. Imagine you're making a video for someone who's just starting out. Even if no one hears it but you, the benefits will be huge. You'll remember more, speak more confidently, and think more clearly in English. Let me tell you something important today. Something that too many learners forget when they're on this journey of learning English. You don't need to know everything now. You don't need to be perfect. What really matters is being consistent and celebrating every small win along the way. Because every step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to the confidence and fluency you want. I've seen so many people give up not because they lacked talent or time, but because they didn't realize they were making progress. They didn't notice the small victories. But I'm here to tell you that those small moments, the word you remembered from yesterday, the sentence you understood in a movie, the comment you made in a conversation, those are the real signs of progress. Let me share a quick story with you. A while ago, I met a learner named Fatima from Casablanca. She was dedicated. She listened to podcasts every morning, read short stories in English, and practiced whenever she could. But one day, she told me she was feeling discouraged. "David," she said, "I still forget so many words. Sometimes I feel like I'm not improving at all." I asked her one question. "Do you remember more words than you did last month?" She thought for a moment, smiled, and said, "Actually, yes. I remember a lot more now." And that was it. That smile, that realization, it changed everything. Progress is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up in the little things. Maybe today you remember just one more word than you did yesterday. That's progress. Maybe today you said something in English that you were too shy to say last week. That's progress. And it matters more than you think. But to see that progress, you need to be consistent. There's no magic shortcut. You don't need to study for hours and hours every day. But you do need to show up every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Read something. Say a sentence out loud. Write down a word you want to remember. Do one thing for your English. And over time, these tiny actions create a huge difference. And here's something I always recommend. Track your progress in a way that works for you. Fatima, the learner I mentioned earlier, started using a simple notebook. Every day, she wrote down one word she remembered and one thing she learned. That's it. Just 2 lines. But weeks later, when she looked back, she was amazed. That notebook became her personal proof that she was improving. You can do something similar. Use your phone, a journal, a calendar, whatever works. Just find a way to make your progress visible. When you see it, you believe in it. Now let's talk about celebrating those wins. You don't have to wait until you can speak like a native to feel proud. Every word you understand, every time you speak without translating, every time someone replies to you in English and you keep the conversation going, that's worth celebrating. Smile. Tell yourself, I did it. Maybe even share your win with a friend or in a language group. You'll be surprised how much motivation that gives you. I remember another story. This one is about Diego from São Paulo. Diego was learning English for his job. He had this habit. Every Friday, he'd review what he learned during the week. And every time he saw improvement, even small things like finally remembering how to use since and for correctly, he would reward himself. Sometimes he'd buy a coffee or just take a walk listening to his favorite music in English. It was simple, but it made him feel proud and motivated to continue. That kind of mindset, consistency, plus appreciation for small wins, that's what gets you to fluency. Not rushing, not comparing yourself to others, just being there every day, doing your best, and recognizing what's working. So let me ask you now, what's one word you remembered this week? What's one sentence you used that made you feel good? What's one small moment that showed you're growing? Think about it. Let that motivate you. And if you're listening right now and thinking, but David, I didn't do anything special this week, I'm going to gently challenge you on that. If you showed up, if you listened to this podcast, if you thought about English today, you did something. That counts. Be proud of that. The more you value the effort you're making, the more likely you are to stay on this journey. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment today to notice one win. Just one. Write it down, say it out loud, or even share it with someone. And tomorrow, find one more. You'll be amazed at how powerful this habit becomes over time. I'd also love to hear from you. If there's a trick or technique you learned in today's episode that you want to try, tell me. Leave a comment and let's talk about it. What's your favorite way to remember words? What small win are you celebrating today? Remember, learning English is not about being perfect. It's about progress. And progress looks different for everyone. Some days it's fast, some days it's slow. But if you keep going, you'll get there. You don't need to remember everything today, but you can remember one more word than yesterday. That's real progress. Every word you remember brings you closer to fluency. Keep going.